Welcome, Jean-Pascal.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. Welcome again to the Colloquio of Idea, and thank you for joining us because you must know that he's from Hong Kong. What time is there?
No, I think it's 10:30 in the evening.
So that is an effort from you. So we are more than happy that you can join us and participate on this edition of the Colloquio of Idea. I am more than excited to talk with you because, you know, climate change is the main theme of my daily life and work as a climate journalist. So we have a lot of things to talk about it. And one of the first things I will ask you is that the focus of climate action today is on the energy transition towards renewable sources. Why should we do not forget about the energy efficiency on that transition?
Thank you very much for having me today. Buenos días, Argentina. I'm really happy to be with you through this conference. Why is efficiency important is that actually sustainability is all about efficiency, and efficiency is the cheapest, the fastest, and the greenest path to sustainability. So if you make it simple, we know what's causing climate change. It's carbon emission. 80% of the cause is carbon emission. And when you look at the cause of carbon emission, 80% comes from energy, the way we produce it and the way we consume it. So what we need to do, very simple. If you want to eliminate carbon, you need to eliminate combustion. And for that, there are two priorities. The first one is electrify. Electrify the supply, electrify the demand, because at the end of the day, the only way to decarbonize. And the second one is to be more efficient. The first two, which is electrify, supply, and demand, are quite easy to represent. You speak about solar panels, you speak about electric cars, you speak about heat pumps. People can say energy efficiency is much less well understood because distributors across millions of sites, of places, homes, factories, transport systems, energy efficiency is much harder to visualize. But yet, it is the easiest way to reduce the emission of carbon coming from energy. And it is also, at the same time, the best way to reduce your costs and improve the capacity to invest or reduce or improve the purchasing power of people. Energy efficiency used also to be quite difficult in the past, but there came disruptions in this field which make it much easier to implement. And the big disruption, like everywhere else, is digitization. So we've seen really a new way of reaching efficiency, which is much faster, much cheaper, much more efficient than before. All of our companies are moving towards more automation, more software, more digital, and really to get new level of efficiency in cities and buildings. IoT-enabled building management systems or systems allow us really to reduce consumption and emission and reach the level of efficiency. Efficiency is just great for your economics. What we see at Schneider, because our business is to supply that combination of technologies to be more efficient, is that in most of the application we talk to or address, you can get 30% savings on a payback of less than 3 years. So there is urgency, and somewhere the good news there is that 50% of the world emissions today can be addressed with technologies which exist today. And those technologies, by a large amount, are around electrification and digitization.
Thank you. You mentioned some of the difficulties regarding your experience and your consideration. What would you mention are the opportunities and challenges related to achieving greater energy efficiency, especially in a region like Latin America?
I don't want it to sound difficult. Actually, when you apply typically digital on a building, respect to the old ways of doing efficiency, it's much faster and much easier. You don't have to evacuate the building to digitize your building. You can really implement efficiency very easily, on much faster, on which much more results than the other way of doing it, which is a more traditional way of insulating buildings, for instance. Now, when I look at Latin America, and I look at Schneider in Latin America, and I can share experience, we've been in Latin America for more than 75 years. We have more than 3,000 employees across the continent. We are in each and every country of Latin America. And let's first start with the realization that Latin America is not one, but it is unique by its diversity, by its size, diversity in terms of altitude, latitudes from the deep south to the equator, the extreme diversity of culture also. And one solution does not fit all. So it's really important to address the issues of decarbonization with local and adapted solution country by country. But I believe that Latin America has really the capability to be a role model and to lead by example due to a few factors. The first thing is that it is the most urbanized region in the world. 80% of the population lives in cities. And when you look at the equation of carbon emission, 80% of carbon emissions come from cities. So in Latin America, by making cities more efficient and more sustainable, we have really more than in other parts of the world, the capacity to make a huge impact on efficiency. The second big asset of Latin America is the incredibly wealth of nature. Latin America has 40% of the world biodiversity. It has also a huge amount of renewable resources. Sun, wind, hydro, geothermal. Will it be just Brazil and Colombia have the greatest hydro? In Argentina, already a large part of electricity comes from renewable. On the other resource that we have in Latin America is a young population. And we need to make sure that we train that young population to the disruption that can be applied in terms of efficiency and in terms of decarbonization to cities, to plants, and to the installations around us. Take our example, over the past 5 years, we've trained more than 35,000 young people in Colombia, Brazil, Mexico, Chile, Costa Rica, and Argentina to those technologies, because in fact, you are speaking about difficulties, but I would say that the biggest difficulty is not about technologies, because technologies now do exist, and they are relatively easy to implement, and the payback is relatively short. The biggest problem is to think, to design, to build, and to operate, taking into account new technologies and doing them in a very different manner. So use the disruptions of those technologies to design different, to build different, to operate different. And that goes with the duty of companies like ours to communicate to people who are deciding on buildings and plants what is the potential, and then making sure that we train enough people so that they can go into each and every building, each and every plant, and make it more efficient. And where we do it, it's actually very much job creative, because you have to go to thousands of sites to implement digital or electrical technology and make them more efficient. Last point I'd like to mention on Latin America is that we shouldn't forget, as we speak about emissions and efficiency, that at the same time, we don't have to forget close to 20 million people who don't have access today to electricity. And our duty is to make sure that we supply them electricity, because energy and electricity is your passport to a decent life. And there will be somewhere no energy transition and no sustainability transition if we don't embark everybody, if we don't include everybody. So at Schneider, we work on that, and we've been supplying electricity to to thousands of people green electricity by leveraging new technologies to bring that energy close to villages and communities who didn't have access to energy. So this is what I wanted to say, but we see a lot of good things being done. I mean, in Argentina, we just did Hospital Italiano, where digitization brings savings in consumption, brings savings on cost, but it brings also resiliency, because when you have a digitized installation, you can much better predict what will happen. And in times of COVID, for instance, where every installation is stressed, you can prevent outages and issues. And we do those kind of installations everywhere. So digitization is not only about efficiency, it's also about resiliency and safety of people.
Such an important point that you mentioned. We do not need to forget that a lot of people still don't have access to energy, so we also need to work on that. I'm going to do just a technical recommendation for the people here in Spanish, and I'm going to continue with you. Recuerden que si quieren, para escuchar mejor, pueden ponerse los auriculares incluso en el idioma en el que se está dando la entrevista. Because they especially want to hear this next question, looking at, Jean-Pascal, looking at the transition towards greater energy efficiency, what recommendations would you give to the leaders of the Latin American companies that are just beginning to address these issues?
I don't know if I would give recommendations. I would share some of the learnings, because let me start by saying that many Latin American companies are at the forefront of sustainability. Take a company like Adeco Agro in Argentina, with whom we work. We are developing together technologies which are really at the forefront of what should be done in sustainability. We are talking with Ternium from Tichin to look at ways to digitize and decarbonize the processes. In Brazil, we have a partnership with Natura, Roberto Marques, who sits with Paul and I at the board of the Global Compact, on many companies in Latin America are already very much aware of the importance of sustainability and are already at the forefront of this. What I would like to share is probably the 5 following points. The first point is start with the low-hanging fruits. When people speak about efficiency and sustainability, very often we tend to go to innovation for 20 or 30 years from now. Today, and it's proven and it's been studied, 50% of the world carbon emissions can be abated using existing technologies. What we bring at Schneider is a combination of digital and electrification, which is a great way to efficiency and decarbonization. But there are plenty of technologies which are already existing, which allow to achieve the same and even more while using much less of resources. The second element, as CEOs of companies, is to realize that time is of the essence. There is urgency. It's not about 2040 and 2050. Climate change is something, and sustainability is something which is accelerating very, very fast. And there is a big difference between the stock of building plants that we have already installed and the flow, the number of building and plants that we are improving every year. What we need is to improve every year many more of our sites. Otherwise, we shall never make it. And when we make a decision of a new site, every decision counts. Every building, every plant that we build today that will be wasteful and polluting will be wasting and polluting for the next 50 years. So it's really important that, one, we are very demanding about each new installation, and second, that we increase the speed of retrofit, revamp of everything which is existing. Third, because it's something which is often opposed, it's not sustainability or performance. It's both of them together. Because at the end of the day, when you think about it, sustainability is about chasing waste. And chasing waste is being more performing economically. So what we see when we address a topic with a customer for efficiency, energy efficiency, very often the payback is very short because actually it makes the profitability of the company, of the plant, or the building much better for the future. So it's really changing our mindset on understanding that if we want our performance to be sustainable, sustainability is based on technologies that makes also the company more performing. The fourth one, and it was said by Paul just before, it's really a teamwork. It's about your company taking commitments, your people that need to be trained and are proud of doing that. It's about your customers. At Schneider, we help every year our customers to save 100 million tons of carbon. And it's also your suppliers. Because if I take the example of Schneider, 90% of our carbon footprint on our emissions is with suppliers and customers. So we just signed a contract with our 1,000 strategic suppliers to help them cut their emissions by 50% in the next coming 5 years. So it's really a teamwork. And finally, and Paul said it, it's all about people. It's all about thinking in a different manner. And if you believe, and I believe personally, that the whole wealth of our company is our people, my job as a CEO is to embark the best people aboard of Schneider. And I don't believe that in the future, the best people, the best talents will work for a company which is not sustainable or which is not digital. So we need to work on both, on green and smart go together, but it's a duty for us to attract the best talents, and for that, being sustainable is a basic condition. So, Paul was saying just before, I don't know if I'm an optimist or if I'm a pessimist. My way of saying it on my side is that I'm not optimist, I'm not pessimist, but I'm an entrepreneur. So I'm an activist. I like action. And I think what companies do well on our role as companies is that we have the resources, we have the people, we have the project manager, we have the technology, we have a regional or global reach. So companies like us have a fundamental role to sustainability. And it's time for us to take up that responsibility.
You know that Christiana Figueres, the ex-UN climate change executive secretary, she said that for the climate action, we need to be stubborn optimism. So I think that that could also be a good definition of what we need to do in the context of the climate crisis. I think that you share with all the audience here and the one that is seeing the event from the other side of the screen, you share with us a lot of great inputs on how we need to also put the focus on energy efficiency when we talk about the energy transition and when we talk about the action against climate change. So thank you for that. Again, I am going to ask for an applause. Thank you again, Jean-Pascal, for joining us on this edition of the Colloquio of Idea.